Hello, this is going to be universal math placement exam practice test one. So yeah, this is a universal math placement practice text exam. Let's begin. Okay, question one says evaluate the following piecewise function. Define function when x is equal 20, and you have these two linear equations. So what is a piecewise function? It's basically more than one more than one function with different domain restrictions. So here we have a equation of 3x plus 2. That's a linear, where x must be less than 4. And then here we have another linear function at 18 minus x, where x is greater than or equal to 4. So we have to figure out, all we got to do in piecewise is figure out which x value, or which equation do we put the x value into. So they said that our x value is exactly 20. Can we put it in the first one? Well, the domain said x is less than 4. Is 20 less than 4? No. What about the second one? 18 minus x, where x is greater than or equal to 4. Is 20 technically greater than or equal to 4? Yes. So we're going to put 20 into the second one, so it's really at the 20. And then just use the second equation, and then just wherever you see an x, replace it with 20. Okay, so this is 18 minus 20, and 18 minus 20 is negative 2. So that is letter A. Okay, simplify. We have this square root. We got to simplify this square root of 144. 8, x to the 8th, y to the 16th. So when we're dealing with square roots, so I believe this might be perfect, but what I want to do is like maybe put everything in it. Let's rewrite this as a power. So how do you write a square root? Like for example, if you had a square root of x, how would I write that as a power? It would be x to the 1/2. And how do I know is because um that it's really using the rule x to the m over n. And this number, you have to look at number here. If they don't have a number, it's automatically indivisible too. And then this has a power of 1. So, oops, mn. So my m is 1 and my n is 2. Okay. Or you just have to remember if it's just a regular square root, it's just x, there's an invisible 2 here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is rewrite this everything as a power. So I can rewrite this as parentheses 144 x to the 8th y 16th all raised to the 1/2. Okay, now what do I do from here? Well, I have to use my raising power rule. So for example, if x3 raised to the second power, what is this going to be? It's going to be x to the 6th because when you raise, you technically multiply. So let's look at we have to raise everything to the 1/2, including the constant 144. So 144 doesn't really have a power. It's just, yes, it does, but it's just an invisible one. But we still got to simplify it. So when you raise, you multiply. So what's 1 times 1/2? 1/2. And then continue. What about x? X to the 8th raised to the 1/2. So when you raise, you multiply. So what's 8 times 1/2? 4. So this is going to be x to the 4th. And then do the 16. What's y to the 16 raised to the 1/2? So multiply 16 times 1/2 is 8. Okay. And then we can simplify one more time. The only thing I can simplify is 144 raised to the 1/2. What is 144 raised to the 1/2? That's the same thing as square root of 144, right? Now we're lucky this is a perfect square. What number squared or what number times itself twice gives you 144? Yes, exactly 12. So 144 to the 1/2 turns to 12, and then you still have this x to the 4th and y to the 8th. Okay, there's your answer. 12x to the 4th, y to the 8th, letter D. 12x4, y8. Perfect. Convert 3/8 into a percentage. I think they provide you a calculator, but if you want to do it by hand, it would be, but I mean by yeah hand. To write this as a percent, 3 goes in the numerator, 8 goes outside the box, and then obviously 8 is too big for 3, so you're gonna have to put an extra 0, line up the decimal, and then how many times does 8 go into 30? About 3, right? 8 times 4 is 32, too large, so 8 times 3 is 24. And then what's 30 minus 24? 6. And then bring down the extra 0. How many times does 8 go into 60? About, let's see, 8 times 8 is 64, so 7, right? 8 times 7 is 56. And then what's 60 minus 56? 4, and then bring down the extra 0. It stops here. 8 times, that would be 5. But they want it as a percentage. So we have 3.375. How do I convert this to percentage? Just multiply by 100 or move it 2 places to the right. So you get 37.5%. That's it. Um, uh, yeah, I think they provide a calculator. So if you put 3/8 in the calculator, you do get 0.375 and then just times this by 100 or move it 2 places to the right and you get 37.5%. So yeah, letter A. Okay. Question 4 says transporting X pounds of materials by trucks costs $3 per pound plus an additional fee of $50. Which expression below represents the total cost of transporting X pounds of material? So this is a linear equation. It's in the form of y equals mx plus b. See, if you look at all the choices, they're all in the form of y equals mx plus b. So that's how I know it's related to linear. So if we know what equation we're going to use, we just got to fill in our blanks, right? What do you think our m is going to be, and what do you think our b is going to be? I'll give you a hint. M is the uncontrolled cost, meaning you can't really know the cost, and then b is like a down payment or the known cost or the when you just put down like the starting cost, right? So let's see. Transporting X pound materials cost $3 per pound. So I think my M is going to be 3 because we don't really know the exact value, right? It's $3 per pound. We don't know how much pounds we're going to use. Plus an additional fee of 50. So B 50 is like our starting point, our down payment, right? So our B is 50. So once you know those two values, it's just put it in the form y equals mx plus b. So it's going to be y equals m. My m is 3x, and then my b is 50. That's it. Uh, Sometimes they'll give you coordinates points, and then we still got to find your m and b, but they just tell us straight out that our m is 3 and our b is 50. You just have to figure it out. Okay, so in a linear equation, the b is like your starting point, your y-intercept, the one you put down, and then m is your slope or your uncontrolled price or uncontrolled value. Question 5, which graph below shows the best represents the function y equals 3x squared? So y equals 3x squared. What do we know about this graph? It's good to know you can make a table, but it's good to know. I would list down everything you know about this graph. I know it's a quadratic, and how do I know why? It's because it's a power of two, right? It's a quadratic, and I know it opens up. And how do I know why it opens up? Because the a value is 3, meaning it's positive, right? There's no reflection. And if you want to find extra points, that's fine. But I also know the vertex is at 0, 0. Why? Because there's no horizontal vertical shift. Yeah. And if you want to make a table, that's fine. Like for the domain of quadratic, you can use any x values you like. I recommend doing some zeros and positive x values. So if you do make a table of a quadratic, just make sure your x value, you must go ahead and use an x value 0 and some positive x values and some negative x values. So if we plug in 0, y 0, that's 0, right? If I plug in 1, that's 3. 1 squared is 1 times 3. If I plug in 2, 2 squared is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. If I plug in negative 1, negative 1 squared is 1 times by 3, 3. And if I plug in negative 2, negative 2 squared is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, so you can make a table. I don't think that's necessary because I think, because this is a multiple choice, you can pick the best choice. So letter A, do you think that's a good choice? Well, it is a quadratic, it's open upwards, it has a vertex of 0, 0. See? And I mean, you could technically plot these points. So do we have a point at 1, comma 3? So you have to eyeball it. 1, here's x value 1. Does it have a point 1, 2? Yes. What about 2, comma 12? Here's 2. Way up here, yes. Negative 1, comma 3. Yes. Negative 2, comma 12, yes. Um, that's a good choice. Now let's just briefly look at the other choice. Why? Let's see if there's another thing that's. Is it B? No, because it's concave down. Ours is concave up. Is it C? Technically, it's concave up, but it doesn't have a vertex of 0, 0. See, the center is right here, so that's no. Is it D? It's definitely concave up. It does definitely have a point of 0, 0, but does it include these points? So if it doesn't have the point 1, comma 3. Here's 1, 2, 3. No, it's not D. So because it doesn't include these points. So I think it's the first choice. Yes, the first choice is the best choice. Okay, question 6. We have 3 times 6 plus 4 times 7 plus 2 over 2. So this is an order of operation problem. Yeah, this is definitely an order of operation. And all you got to do is just use, when you're dealing with order of operations, all you got to do is use pandas and just stay neat. So what I would do is do this and then bring down what you haven't done. So let's start with the P parentheses. Do we have a parentheses? Yes. Wait, first thing I could do is you see this slanted too. If you want, you can rewrite this as I don't know if this just makes you crazy, but this slanted could be completely horizontal. Yeah, let's see if that helps. Okay, so now let's do our pandas. So do we have a parentheses? Yes. Our parentheses is this 7 plus 2. And because there's one order of operation inside the parentheses, you could just do that. Now, if you have like two or more of order operation inside the parentheses, you gotta start with pandas all over again. So just, yeah, simplify that. What's 7 plus 2? 9. And then bring down what you haven't done. So bring down that 4, bring down that plus, and then this is not 3.6, it's 3 times 6. And then don't forget this is all over 2. Okay, so we did parentheses. Do we have an exponent? No. Do we have a multiplication? Yes, we have 2. That dot means multiplication, it's not 3.6. So multiply that out. 3 times 6 is 18 plus, and then you have this multiplication. 9 times 4 is 36 over 2, right? Do we have a division? Yes. The 36 over 2. So what's 36 divided by 2? 18. And then bring down what you haven't done. So bring down this extra 18. So we don't have a division. We did the division. Do we have an addition? Yes. What's 18 plus 18? 36. Okay. So when you're doing order of operation, you just have to know, just stay neat, do the pandas, bring down what you haven't done. It's very easy to make a mistake, especially if you don't bring down what you haven't done. Okay, question 7 says find the solutions to the quadratic equation. So when they say find the solution, they literally mean find the x-intercept. The good news about this problem is it's already in factored form. Sometimes you'll have a polynomial that isn't factored and you gotta factor it, but it's already in factored form. So once you have it in factored form, just solve for x. Now, top of my head, I can see that my x is gonna be 4 and it's gonna be x equals -3/2. How do I did that? Like, how do I do that? Like, how did I know x is 4 and x equals -3? What I did was I kind of visually set each equation to 0, or set each parentheses to 0, right? There's two parentheses. Set that to 0 and solve for x. So over here, I'm going to have to add 4. That's how I get x equals 4. Here, I'm going to have to subtract 3/2. That's how I got x equals -3/2. Okay, it's that simple. So x equals 4 and x equals -3/2. So that is letter A. Okay, question 8. Solve the equation. We have the square root of x plus 21 plus 5 equals 17. So my first instinct is move that 5 to the left. Do not square. You see that radically? I know it's tempting to square, but don't square it now. So first, I'm going to move that 5 to the right by subtracting 5. So I get square root of x plus 21 equals to 17 minus 5, which is 12. Then I'm going to get rid of the radical by squaring both sides. So on the right, what's 12 squared? 144. And then on the left, what is this? What happens when you square a radical? It disappears. And then go ahead and solve for x by subtracting 21. You get 144 minus is 123. Okay, so I subtracted 5 from both sides. Take this, not take the square of both sides, and then solve for x by subtracting 21, and then I get 123. April sells golden apples for $1,500 a piece. If she sells 25 apples in a single weekend, how much money does she collect? So this one's sometimes some of these problems are as easy as it looks. So April sells golden apples for $1,500 a piece. So let's say X is the piece. Like if she sells 25 apples in a single weekend, how much money? So it is it is technically the form of y equals mx plus b. The only difference is our b is 0. We don't have a starting point. And our m is 1,500. And then our x is the what is our x? The amount of apples. So all you got to do is plug in 25 into the equation, and you get 37,500. That's simple. Okay, 37,500. That's how much she collected. Okay. Question 10. If 7 plus 5 parentheses x equals 2 times parentheses 7 minus 1, what can be deduced? Um, so I don't think I'll solve for x and y. What I'll do is just simplify the left and simplify the right and see what happens. So on the left, we have parentheses 7 plus 5 times x. So you can simplify that with 7 plus 5, 12. And then on the left, you have 2 parentheses 7 minus 1. So it's 2, and then 7 minus 1 is 6, and then multiply 2 times 6 is 12. Okay, so this is a big clue. You could figure out what is the correct answer. Is it A, x must be greater than 1? That is false, because if you don't believe me, try it. So if x has to be greater than y, so if x is 2, y must equal 1. This will never make the statement true, right? 12 times 2 does not equal to 12 times 1, right? Impossible. B, does x does not equal to y? I think they have to equal to. So I don't think it's B, I don't think it's A, I don't think it's C. I think it has to be D. X equals y. So for example, if x equals 1, y equals 1. I think that'll make the statement true. So 12 times 1 equals 12 times 2. Okay, and the same thing if you use different x value, if x equals 2, y must equal 2. This will always make the statement true. So I'm going to say D. Solve for x. So the good news is this is a right triangle, and we got to solve for x. So when you're dealing with right triangles, you can use the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. And then we have two legs, so we definitely can use Pythagorean. If we didn't, we'd have to use something else. Um, So we're trying to solve for x, right? So x is technically the hypotenuse or the c. How do I know? It's because x is facing directly across the 90 degree. So if it's facing across the 90 degree, that is the biggest angle. That means that is the biggest side length. Okay, so A is a leg, so it would be 2 square. B4 is a leg, so it's going to be 4 square. And then the hypotenuse is x. You got to square that. So 2 squares 4, 4 squares 16 equals to x squared. So 4 plus 16 is 20. So x squared, and then take the square root of both sides. So you get x equals square root of 20. Now what you want to do is you don't see our answer because they simplify this. You know, square root of 20 is not perfect, so you have to simplify it. So how do I simplify a non-perfect radical? All you got to do is think of two numbers that are multiply 20. It could be any number. So if I use 5 and 4, then what I do is circle your prime numbers. So 5 is prime. So what is a prime number? It's basically a number that can only be times by 1 and itself, right? So, okay, 5 is prime. Yeah, I agree. I will. 5 is prime, 7 is prime, 11 is prime, right? All these numbers can be times by 1 in itself. 4 is not prime. It could be broken down as 2 and 2. And then what I do next is of the prime numbers, of the numbers I circled only, I don't care about this 4 anymore. The prime numbers I only care about, I circle pairs of 2 because remember what we said, that you look at this number, this has an invisible 2. So that 2 and 2 is a pair right here. So not necessarily the number 2, just a pair in general. So this 2 and 2, now this pair 2, this 2 and 2 just becomes 2 and you put it outside the radical. And then inside is your leftover prime number, which is 5. So as you can see, my final answer is 2 radical 5. Okay, so that is how you simplify a non-perfect radical. Question 12, we got to multiply these two fractions. So the good news about multiplying fractions, you just literally multiply across. I mean, sure you can reduce this, but just multiply across. So what's 21 times 3? 63. What's 50 times 7? 350. Now I technically this can be reduced, I think, by 7. So this is 9. Yeah. But the thing is, I don't see my answer for 9. Can this be reduced one more time by 3? Right. No, can't be reduced. Thing is, I don't see my answer. I don't see 9 over 50. So the only answer I see is 63 over 350, right? So A. We solve the inequality. So we're dealing with absolute value inequality. So what you got to do when you're dealing with absolute value inequalities or even equations, what you got to do is first make sure there's nothing near, nothing nothing near the absolute value, right? For example, if there is something near, you got to get rid of it. For example, if you have 3 parentheses 3x plus 9 minus 2 is less than equal to 27. What you got to do is first, you're going to get rid of this negative 2 and the 3 by adding 2 and dividing both sides by 3. Okay, but the good news is there's nothing near, so we don't have to do that. So once you have that, you're going to make two inequalities. But first, you got to make sure that this number is positive. If it is not positive, there would be no solution immediately. So if this was a negative 27, it would be no solution. Okay. And then make two inequalities or two equations. In this case, it would be inequalities because we have the symbol less than equal to. And then solve for x or solve for whatever your letter is. So we're going to do step 2 because there's nothing near the absolute value. So I'm going to write my two. I know this is positive 20, so I know there is a solution. So I'm going to write out my two inequalities. So my first one is basically this without the absolute value. The second one is the same thing. The only thing is you flip the sign, so it's going to be greater than equal to, and then you make this 27 into a negative 27. That's it. And then step 4 is solve for x. Over here, I'm going to subtract 9. And divide this by 3. And then I don't flip the sign because I'm not dividing by a negative. So 18 so the sign stays the same, and then 18 divided by 3 is 6. Same thing here. We're going to subtract 2, that's 9. Negative 27, negative 9 is negative 36. Divide this by 3. And then I don't flip the sign because I'm dividing it by positive 3, so that sign stays the same. So negative 36 divided by 3 is negative 12. Okay, do you see our answer? Not yet. So x is greater than negative 12 and x is less than 6. So if you want to see it on an underline, so you put the smaller number on the left, so our small number is negative 12, and then our larger number is positive 6. And they both have an equal sign, so it's going to be dark circle or bracket. And then 6x is less than 6, so you move the arrow to the left, but not all the way. And then x is greater than negative 12, so that you're going to move it there to the right. So it connects, right? It connects, it doesn't disconnect. So which is that going to be? I believe it's A, because x is less than 6. Now, right here, this is backwards, believe it or not. It's really saying x is greater than equal to negative 12. I don't know if you can see that, but this is always backwards, no matter what. So x is greater than equal to negative 12. That's what we got. So it has to be A. Okay, question 14, find the volume. Now, the good news about this is they tell you everything you need. You just need to know the formula. The volume of this rectangle isn't, they're not asking for surface area, they're just asking for volume. So volume is basically length times width times height, and they give us everything we need. Um, you just multiply out everything. So 3.5 times 8 times 10 is 280 centimeters cubed. Okay, so that would be letter B. Okay, question 15. Consider the graph below. Which option best represents the line reflected across the y-axis? So here they give you this linear line right here. They want to know of these options, which one is a reflection across the y-axis. So what is the rule of a reflection across the y-axis? It's basically this. You have a coordinate x comma y, and then the rule is when you reflect it across the y-axis, you make the x negative. So the x will be negative, the y stay the same. So all we got to do is pick a point from this graph right here, and then just make the x negative and figure out which one is that point. So I'm gonna pick this point. And that point is at 5 comma 10. And then you got to make the x negative, so this 5 is going to be negative 5 and the y is 10. So all we got to do is figure out which graph has the point negative 5 comma 10, and that's it. So is it the first one, negative 5 positive 10? No. Second one, negative 5 positive 10? No. C, negative 5 positive 10? Yes, right? That's the point. So it's C. Maybe let's check D. -5, no, it doesn't hit the point -5 comma 10. So it's going to be C, letter C. Okay, question 16. Which graph below represents the circle x minus 3 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 9? So what we got to do is first find the center. The center is like these, and it's the opposite because it's a horizontal shift. So even though this is at x minus 3, your x value is going to be positive 3. And then this y plus 3, even though it's a positive 3, it's always the opposite, so -3. Now, what would be my radius? My radius is whatever this number, so what is the equation of circle? It's x minus h squared equal y minus k squared equals r squared. So r squared is 9, but I want to find regular r, so I take the square root, so r is 3. So what we got to do is find a circle with a center of 3, -3, and a radius of 3. So is it the first one? Does it have a center of 3, -3? Yes. Now, here's, I know it's hard to see, but 3 comma -3 is right here. Now, what we got to do is make sure we have to go 3 units to the right, 3 units to the left, 3 units up, and 3 units down. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm just eyeballing it. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It might be A. Is it B? No, it doesn't have a center of 3 comma -3. Is it C? No. Doesn't have the correct center. Is it D? 3 comma -3. Ooh, that's hard. Like, okay, that might be it. So here's 3, here's -3, and then does it have a radius? 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah, so what's the difference between D and A? Oh, yeah, I think this is off. I think this is a bit off. Here's 3 comma -3. The radius is not correct. So I think it is letter D. So just be careful. Just even though that answer looks correct, you just got to look at all choices. Okay. Question 17. Find the solution of the linear equation. So you could technically test each one, um, but what I would do, if you want to do it by hand, the method I would do is elimination. See how they have all the letters on the left? That's how you know you're going to do elimination. Here's equation 1, here's equation 2. And then what I'm going to do is figure out which letter do I want to get rid of. I want to get rid of I think it's best to get rid of the x because here you have -4x and then here you have 1x. I'm going to leave that -4x alone and and then I'm going to make this x into a positive 4. See, as you can see, they cancel zeroed out. So I have to multiply the entire second equation by positive 4. Okay, so the first one, it stays the same. The second one, I do have to multiply that 4, so that's going to be 12y plus 4x, and then 10 times 4 is 40. And then x cancels, and then what's 12 plus 7? 19. And then what's 20 plus 40? 60. Divide this by 19. Y is 60 over 19. So that's the only one. I mean, this has to be right because, oh, there's a no solution. So we got to check it if x is really 1019. So what I'm going to do is substitute this into either this one or this one. Okay, so it's 7 times y is 16. 19 minus 4x equals 20. What's 7 times 60 over 19? Oh, 7 times 60, which is 420 over 19 minus 4x equals to 20 over 1. And then multiply everything by 19 to get rid of the fraction. So 19 times 4 over 20 is 420. 19 times -4 is -76. And then 19 times 20 is 380. Okay, so solve for x, you get subtract 420. You get -76x equals to 380 minus 420, which is -40. And is this 76? Yes. Divide both sides by -76. And you get positive 40 over 76. And I think that could be reduced by 4. 40 divided by 4 is 10. 76 divided by 4 is, okay, so my x is 10 over 19 and my y is 60 over 19. So it's going to be C. Okay, question 18 says, what is the equation in line that passes through the point -1, 3 and a half slope of 4/5? So they're saying, yeah, we're dealing with linear equation, so we're going to definitely use y equals mx plus b. Um, they do tell us the slope as 4/5. They tell you that it's good. They don't tell us our b. They only tell us that we have it goes to the point -1, 3. So what we're going to do is plug in this point to solve for b. So you're going to substitute x with -1 and substitute y with 3. Okay, so it's going to be y. So we can replace y with 3. My m was given as positive 4/5. And then I'm going to multiply that x by -1 plus b. So what's 4/5 times -1? -4/5. Then get rid of the fraction by multiplying everything by 5. So 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times -4/5, that's -4. Plus 5 times b is 5b. And then solve for b, so you're going to add 4, add 4. 15 plus 4 is 19. Divide this by 5. So my b is 19/5. Okay, so now we have everything. So our final answer is going to be y equals m, which was, what was m? 4/5. And my b is 19/5. So we'll receive. Okay, what is the area of the triangle below? So the area of a triangle, you just need to know the area of any triangle is base times height over 2. And the good news is they tell us everything we need. The base is 15, right? This thing here is 15. The height it's given is 20. And then divide that by 2. And you get 300 over 2, which is 150. 150 centimeters squared. Okay, question 20. Which graph below represents the function y equals, or f of x equals -1 over x plus 3? So we're graphing a rational function. And why do I know it's a rational? Because it's in a fraction form. If it's in a form of px over qx, um, yeah, it's in a form of rational form. So what you need to know is a rational because it's a fraction. And what you need to know, you need a few things. You need the vertical asymptote. You need the horizontal and a few points. Okay, so yeah, let's do that. So let's find the vertical. So to find the vertical, I'm going to abbreviate it as VA. Set the denominator to 0 and solve for x. So my denominator is x minus 3. Set that to 0 and solve for x. And then, so our vertical asymptote is x equals 3. Um, what that looks like, it's going to look something like this. So x equals 3, here's 3. And then you just make a vertical dash line like that. And then to find the horizontal asymptote, I'm going to abbreviate it as HA. You kind of, so it's going to be y equals for horizontal. You kind of have to look at the degree on the highest degree on the numerator and highest degree on the denominator, and then you use your rules. So your highest degree on the numerator, you don't see a degree, it's just -1, but it does have that invisible x to the 0, right? So if you have a constant, your degree is x equals 0, x to the 0. And then on the bottom, you have x minus 3. What is your highest degree or your highest term? It's x or x1, right? -3 is not the highest. So then what you want to do is look at your rules. Is this top heavy, bottom heavy, or when the degrees are the same? So the degree on the bottom is bigger than the top, so it is definitely bottom heavy. And when it's bottom heavy, your horizontal asymptote is always going to be y equals 0. So don't be fooled. You have one, it's just y equals 0, so that looks like this. I'm going to use blue. So y equals 0 is this blue horizontal dash line. So I found my vertical, I found my horizontal. Now I need some few points. So what I'm going to do is, I don't need that much. You'll see why. So I can't use the x value 3, but I could use the x value 4. Why can't I use 3? Because it's our vertical asymptote. So plug in 4 into your original function. So it's -1, and then replace x with 4. What's 4 minus 3? 1. And that gives you -1. So you have a point at 4, comma 1, -1. So 4, here's -1 right here. And then you make a little dash line like this. Okay. Now we can't use the x value 3, so let's do the left side so I can use the x value 2. So if I plug in 2, it's going to be -1. Replace x with 2. So that's -1, and then 2 minus 3 is -1. -1 over -1 is +1. So you have a point at 2, comma 1. Here's 2, here's 1. There we go. So you have a vertical asymptote at x equals 3. You have a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0. On the right, it behaves like this, and then on the left, it behaves like that. So which one is that going to be? Is it A, vertical asymptote 3? Yes. Y equals 0, and then, oh, it doesn't behave with the way on the right it curves like this, so it's not A. Is it B? Mm-mm. Vertical asymptote is wrong. Is it C? No. Vertical asymptote is wrong. Is it D? Maybe. Vertical asymptote 3, horizontal through 0, and then yes. It behaves like this on the right, and then on the left, yes. So I'm going to say D. Okay, question 21. Based on the image below, what is the value of x? So we have, you kind of need a little bit of geometry rule. These two angles are congruent. Do you see these crisscross? Let me scroll down. The reason why these two angles are congruent is because they are vertical angles. So if you have like, for example, here's like angle one, here's angle two. These two angles are congruent because they are vertical angles, and all vertical angles are congruent. So we can say 2x plus 10 equals to x plus 25. We want to know what x is, not the angle. So go ahead and solve for x. So it's easy. Subtract 1x for both sides. You get 2x minus 1x is x plus 10 is 25, and then solve for x by subtracting 10. So 25 minus 10 is 15. And that's what they want, just x, not the angle. Okay. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to make it into the two parts. So I'm going to stop here.